A stick, a shadow, a planet appears. Tonight, we let the noise fade and rebuild the world with quiet tests you could do in your yard or by the sea. Horizon means the line where Earth's surface curves out of view, and that line will be our first companion. Imagine standing on a pier as a distant ship moves away, its hull fading first while the mast lingers like a pencil line against the sky. That bottom-up disappearance is not magic. It is geometry gently acting on sight. When something large slips below a curved surface, the lowest parts go first. If the surface were perfectly flat, the entire ship would only appear to shrink smaller and smaller without parts vanishing out of order. Instead, from countless harbors, people watch the same sequence: hull, then deck, then mast. The pattern is as patient as the tide. Let's give that pattern a name you can feel. Picture a coin on a table gliding away from your eyes. The coin does not disappear all at once. It slips behind the table's gentle rise. The sea acts like that table, except the rise is the curve of Earth itself. Here is our first curiosity spark. The line where sky and sea meet does not reveal the whole ship at once, yet the air between you and the ship is clear. What hides the hull is not mist. It is the world curving softly between you and the vessel. The simplest explanation fits the simplest observation. Quick glossary for tonight, so we only say these once. Horizon, the line where a curved surface leaves your field of view. Latitude, north-south position, angle from the equator. Refraction, light's deflection through layers of air. Great circle, the shortest route on a sphere. Gyroscope, a spinning wheel that tattles on rotations beneath it. Now we borrow the oldest daylight tool, nothing more than a stick and the sun. Place a straight stick upright at midday and mark the tip of the shadow. Measure its length, and you'll own a gentle angle drawn by sunlight across your town. Tomorrow, someone far away could do the same. When two locations have different shadow lengths at the same local midday, the ground beneath them must not share the same tilt toward the sun. That difference is easiest to explain if each place sits on a sphere where surface directions diverge. With two numbers and the distance between towns, you can estimate the world. If the surface were a plane, equal sunlight would strike with equal geometry, giving equal shadows at equal times. Yet travelers have repeated the unequal result for centuries across deserts, plazas, and school fields. The planet quietly measures itself through our hands. The feeling that you might have been misled is human, especially in a world where pictures are edited and trust is fragile. But the power to test never left your kitchen clock, your tape measure, and the ground beneath your feet. You are not at the mercy of distant authorities when the sky offers you an experiment. Tonight, we promise this. Every claim we touch will carry a way for you to try a version of it yourself. You will not need a lab full of machines. Only patience and a willingness to compare what you expect with what you actually see. Curiosity is the gentlest instrument ever made. Latitude is your north-south position, measured as angles from the equator, and it changes the sky you live under. Travelers going south meet unfamiliar constellations rising, while old companions slip low and finally fall below view. The sky that feels permanent is actually local. Stand under a southern night, and you may find a tight pinwheel of stars circling a point that never quite sets. Move far north, and a different pinwheel rules the night. If a dome fixed the stars above a flat plain, everyone would share the same wheel, but we do not. You might have seen a map that spreads the world like a blue badge with the North Pole at its center and Antarctica as a ringed wall. Projections like that can be useful for a purpose, but their distances break our everyday reality in unmistakable ways. Flight paths across oceans refuse to obey such a picture. Sunrise sweeps city by city so steadily that trains, flights, and calls can rely on it. On a flat stage with a capricious spotlight, farmers' calendars would collapse. Instead, seasons hold to a slightly tilted, turning sphere. And our routines fit the same geometry. Sometimes people offer a grand alternative. Perhaps everything accelerates upward together, pressing us down the way a car's seat does when it speeds. The idea is bold, but it tangles itself the moment you ask how stars, orbits, and long-falling paths keep their elegant patterns. The sky is the sternest reviewer of big claims. If everything simply rushed upward forever, a tossed ball would behave with an eerie sameness in all directions, and long-distance trajectories would fail to match what engineers and athletes rely on. Instead, the math that lands spacecraft also predicts the leap of a child. Ordinary life and the highest orbits share a language. Let me put a small power in your pocket by morning. Tomorrow at your local noon, place a meter stick or any straight rod upright and mark its shadow's tip on the ground. Take a photo from the same spot as the shadow moves and note the shortest length. You are tracing your town's tilt toward the sun. Send that simple record to a friend a long drive away and compare. The two shortest shadows rarely match because you live on surfaces pointing slightly different directions. That difference is expected on a sphere and stubborn on a plane. In two everyday acts, you become a participant in old discovery. Refraction means light changing direction as it moves between mediums, like from cool air to warmer air, and the effect is measurable with simple glass and a straw in a glass of water. On the largest stage, it adds a shimmer to horizons without altering ship's bottom-first disappearances everywhere, every day. Patterns outlast ripples. Another everyday proof hides in the moon's bruised beauty during a lunar eclipse. When Earth slips between sun and moon, the shadow painted across the lunar face carries a curve that stays curved no matter the angle. Only a sphere throws a circular shadow from every direction. If a flat coin passed before a light, the shadow would change shape as the coin tilted, becoming an ellipse and then a line. Yet the moon keeps catching a soft, rounded edge from us, a signature that never sharpens into a bar. The theater of night records a shape we cannot bully. People sometimes say, but images can be faked, and that is true in a world where screens hold both truth and tricks. This is why we keep leaning on things you can do, see, and time without distant permission. The more local the experiment, the more trusted the feeling. Yet local does not mean lonely. Your simple measurements join a quiet network of others doing the same things everywhere. Shared notes from schools and neighbors build a mosaic that looks like a sphere, whether or not satellites send pictures. The world's shape does not depend on a single photograph. Star patterns changing with latitude may be the softest teacher of all. On a northern beach, you can never coax the Southern Cross above your horizon, no matter how long you wait. On a southern hill, you will never persuade Polaris to rise. The sky refuses to be moved by wish. If we lived under one roof, the same constellations would visit every audience with only a shift in size. Instead, whole families of stars appear and vanish as you travel, which fits a globe where your horizon tilts and blocks different slices of space. Mobility changes the ceiling you believe in. Here is a third spark to keep you awake with gentle intrigue. Fly south, and new stars greet you while old friends bid goodbye. That farewell and welcome are not a trick. They are your position on a round world expressed in starlight. The universe itself whispers your latitude. Sometimes, admiration for human craft gets tangled with suspicion of human institutions. You can respect rockets and doubt agencies, You can enjoy engineering and still ask for proof you can touch. The good news is that trust in simple, repeatable patterns does not require membership in any club. Watch how dawn sweeps town by town in a steady order, while seasons tilt the sun higher or lower. Trains, calls, and crops all lean on this predictable rhythm. A turning, tipped sphere makes those timings natural, whereas a flat stage with a roaming spotlight would twist day lengths and harvests beyond recognition. You may have watched a long bridge disappear in the same bottom-first fashion as ships. Stand on a causeway and witness how the far pylons shrink, then slip, while nearer ones remain proud. Asphalt and steel obey the same patient geometry as the sea. The road itself admits the world's shape. Consider also how radio towers far apart lose lineal sight beyond certain distances, unless antenna heights rise. Engineers do not design by creed. They design by constraints, and those constraints include a curve. Technology quietly confesses the planet every day. Fourth spark, and it rides your map. Santiago to Sydney makes no sense on a disk, but it breathes naturally on a globe. The southern oceans shrink to humane sizes only when you allow the world its roundness. Your jet does not argue philosophy, it follows the shortest path available. Great circle routes seem crooked on flat maps because the map is what is bent, not the Earth. What looks like a strange arc on paper is a gentle belt on a ball, and if you have ever traced your finger over an in-flight screen, you have seen that belt unfold. Paper can lie, distances cannot. You might have heard of a vast encircling ice barrier that keeps travelers from falling off the world. But Antarctica is not a wall. It is a continent with research stations, weathered mountains, and tours that thread narrow seas in summer. People work there, measure there, and come home with the same number of fingers. The existence of cold coastlines does not support a disk any more than the existence of beaches supports a triangle. What matters is how distances behave, how the sun's path behaves, and how the stars behave. When three independent things agree, we start to relax. Fifth spark, because good ideas welcome their strongest rival, gravity or endless upward acceleration. One asks masses to pull, the other asks all of space to shove. The first explains orbits, tides, and the grace of falling leaves with one story. The second cannot keep the sky consistent without borrowing from the first. If a floor were racing upward to mimic weight, a dropped object and a long-range projectile would share a simplicity that the world refuses to show. Instead, we meet curves within curves, seasonal height to tides, and satellites that glide for years because falling around a sphere is a possible dance. Complexity organizes under one rule. When claims grow large, I like to ask for a simple, risky prediction. They make that everyday life would quickly falsify. The upward rush idea struggles to predict the different period of a pendulum at high altitude versus sea level, or the bulge of oceans at the equator that ships ride daily. Predictions should stick their necks out. There is also kindness in how we talk with people who carry these ideas, because many came to them through a wish to be awake and not fooled. The same wish lives in science when it is healthy. We can disagree with warmth, and we can offer tests without offering insults. If you want to share this gently, invite a friend to the pier to watch a hull sink first. Meet at noon in a yard to trace a shadow. Or, if life allows, stand under a southern sky to greet new stars. 3 small visits, 1 quiet pattern. If someone shows you a video of a ship reappearing with zoom, notice that magnification brings larger pixels of the same truth. A camera can enlarge, but it cannot pull a hull up from behind a curve. Zoom makes the edges crisper. It does not move the sea. If another person points to a photo with a suspicious horizon tilt, remember that cameras tilt easily, while water still obeys gravity's level. The cure is to check from two places, two heights, or 2 days errors that are personal shrink, while the pattern that belongs to the world remains. Repetition is mercy for the mind. A gyroscope does not care about fashion. It cares about rotation. When set on a stable platform, its axis prefers to stay pointing where it began, and if the ground slowly turns, the axis seems to drift in a steady way that matches the Earth's daily spin. Silent wheels can tell time without numbers. Sailors once learned the world by coasts and stars. Now pilots track invisible great circles while screens whisper their progress. In between stands you, with a stick in your yard, and the patience to compare a noon today with a noon tomorrow. The ladder from small to grand is made of ordinary rungs. You might worry that acknowledging a curve makes you surrender something personal, as if trust in shared patterns means losing independence. The opposite is true. When you can test little pieces yourself, you gain a kind of sovereignty that conspiracy cannot counterfeit. At this point, you have a harbor's proof, a yard's proof, a night sky's proof, a flight map's proof, and the moon's shadow as a final autograph. None requires a badge. Each one invites a neighbor to check and a child to repeat. Science before sleep is not a lecture. It is a lullaby of patient patterns. If you feel a small ache that these arguments seem simple, that is their strength. The world asks us to be careful, not complicated. When many modest observations lean the same way, calling them all tricks becomes a heavier burden than letting the world be round. There is grace in allowing a better map to replace a beloved one. Cartographers cherish projections yet warn that every projection bends truth somewhere. Sailors and pilots choose what bends least for the job, and in daily life the globe wins by keeping distances honest. Honesty is a quiet comfort at night. Consider how seasons tilt the sun higher or lower, drawing longer or shorter arcs across your sky as months turn. The height of noon and the length of your day swing with a rhythm that matches a planet tipped politely on its axis. A flat world would require a light performing unlikely dances. Even shadows at sunrise tell the same tale. Winter's first light slants from a different direction than summer's, reciting the tilt whether or not we listen. Plants tune themselves to this song, bending and saving energy with a wisdom older than calendars. Biology is a witness who never studied astronomy. If the world were flat, no invitation could make Polaris vanish in the south, or pulled a southern cross above a northern horizon. That stubborn refusal is not an insult. It is a boundary drawn by geometry. In a world full of shifting opinions, boundaries that hold our medicine. Perhaps the most healing thought before sleep is that truth can be both accessible and humbling. You can touch a piece of it with a ruler and still feel small beneath the stars. The combination of agency and awe is why this topic belongs at bedtime. Every such glance is a tiny vote for coherence. Coherence is that feeling when many pieces line up and stop demanding complicated excuses. We are allowed to choose the explanation that asks us to invent the fewest new rules. In conversations where tempers rise, a calm question can be a bridge. What pattern would make you change your mind? Then offer one of these small tests that do not depend on trust in faraway offices. When minds feel safe, evidence starts to feel like a gift rather than a threat. The world has always been bigger than any story we tell about it, and that is good news. It means we can keep learning without losing face, because new details fit into an older, sturdier frame. The frame in this case is simply, we live on a sphere. As we approach our promised quiet scene, imagine the planet without borders, just weather moving like paint across a spinning canvas. Clouds arc in bands, storms coil, and lights at night bead coastlines that we have traced all evening with words. The view is not proof alone, it is context for all the little proofs. Now, that calm picture, Earthrise. Not rushed, not cut quickly, just a slow reveal of our world round against the black, a blue coin held by nothing. It is the same world that hid a ship's hull, that shortened your shadow, that traded constellations as you moved. One image, many echoes. Truth here is testable, gentle, and shared. Let that calm coherence carry you to sleep.